Hello and welcome to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 101. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. They really don't. And today people often ask me about dowsing and dark entities. So I thought, why not do a whole episode giving you an in-depth understanding of dowsing, demonic detection, and how it all works. So let's dive straight in. So what is dowsing? Dowsing is a time-old method of connecting with the energetic environment around us. Initially, people used to use copper or brass rods to detect resources in the earth, such as water or mineral pockets that were deeply hidden in the earth. But dowsing can also be used to connect with energy beings in our environment, such as during paranormal investigations. But also, people like me can use dowsing for energy work, and I'm going to explain how all this works. I use a hematite pendulum. It's just my choice. I choose a crystal, but you can make a pendulum out of anything really, and we're going to talk about that soon. I use my hematite pendulum as my dowsing tool when I'm doing house clearings or personal energy clearings. I tried using the rods, but I found they take too long to master and they take too long to give me yes and no answers. And I have to say, I have no patience. I have no patience for the time it takes to use them. And when I use my pendulum, it gives me instant answers. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. Now, some of you may be new to dowsing rods and pendulums. And no, they're not some sort of woo-woo spiritual rubbish. And no, pendulums don't open doorways into other realities or summon dark entities like some people think. They do not open portals, but they are a very useful external tool that anyone can use for lots of different purposes, such as finding lost items. They can be part of your spiritual toolkit. They can help you connect to your guides. They can help you connect to your higher self when you're making decisions and you're really stuck and you just don't know which direction to go. They're also good for energy work and balancing the chakras in our bodies. The list really does go on. Now, what is a pendulum? A pendulum is a weighted object on the end of a piece of string or cord or cotton. I used to use a piece of leather thonging. You can use wool, you can use chain. The object, the weighted object, can be made of lead crystal. It could be a metal, brass or copper, or it could be a crystal. It could be wood, seed pods, a key, a ring. As long as it's got some weight to it and it has a central balance, it will work as a pendulum. So pendulums are one of the simplest forms of divination for beginners to learn. They can really help you tap into your inner intuition. Like I call my pendulum, it's an external focusing tool. And the constant use of my pendulum has allowed me to build a really good relationship with my intuition, higher self, and so forth. And it acts as a receiver for getting useful information. Like this is personal information, but also for my house clearing work. Pendulums give you access to answers from a different perspective. Quite often we have so much jumble and monkey chatter going on in our heads that it's really quite hard to make a decision. It's quite hard to hear clearly, think clearly. So when you've got a pendulum active or you're using the dowsing rods, that's an external focus point that really can be quite fun to use. Now, learning to use a pendulum takes time and it takes trust. And it does take patience and also practice and lots more practice. People will pick up a pendulum sometimes and expect it to instantly have a particular movement. For For some people, it does nothing. You have to actually trust the process of working with this external object that is going to help you connect to your higher self. And learning to understanding what your yes and no signs are is really, really important. Because pendulums can only give you a yes or a no answer. Sometimes you get a little shaky quiver for a maybe. You've just got to learn to use it, learn to trust the process. And no, you can't ask for the lottery numbers, because personal gain, in that sense, is frowned upon. So what's the connection between dowsing and demonic entities in our environment? Now, this is a bit of fun. Well, I kind of think so. Some people might not, but I'm going to give you a couple of examples of cheeky demonic pendulum manipulation, and also 4 reasons why this can happen. So I use my pendulum every single day, sometimes for 3, 4, 5 hours a day is part of my work. And it really gives me the external focus outside my thoughts when I'm doing the energy work, and it gives me accurate answers. And I know this because when I send the reports off to the clients, they're saying to me, something's changed in my house. Something's seriously changed. The house feels lighter, brighter, calmer, happier. The kids are happy, the dog's happy, so forth. So I know that the work I'm doing with my pendulum to connect to universal energy, God source, creator, whatever you want to call it, that is giving me accurate answers because it is helping my clients. We as human beings are just the channels. We are the conduit when we're doing this channeling work with our pendulums. Now, for house healing or clearing work, we are going to talk about demonic beings, so just hang in there. This is coming now. For house healing, clearing or cleansing, whatever you want to call it, I can tune into the address and the floor plan of a client's home anywhere in the world. And I can ask through the connection to the address and the floor plan with my pendulum, I can ask if there are any spirits, dark or demonic entities present. So if I get yes, yes and yes, and I'll ask how many, how long have they been there, I'll ask what they're attracted to, what they need. And I will say that all dowsing work, this is really, really important if you want to start working with a pendulum or dowsing rods, is you need to work with a blank mind. So what this means is I'm very visual. So this description that I'm going to share now helps me to stay blank. What I see in my mind is a clean whiteboard. There's absolutely nothing written on it. And when I'm doing dowsing, it's not like there's words that appear on the whiteboard, or they might one day. Now I've put that thought out there. But what it is, for me, seeing that clear whiteboard means that my mind is just totally blank. It's kind of blocking all my worries, all my monkey chatter that's going on in my brain is all behind that whiteboard. So it stops my mind, interfering with the answers that I'm getting with the pendulum. So I know that when I tune into a property, what I'm picking up on is exactly what is in the home. The other thing to remember is that you must have no preconceived outcome in mind. Otherwise, you can influence your thoughts and your desires about, oh yeah, I want a yes. There's spirits in that house. I want a yes. If you put that out there, that's exactly what you're going to get. So I go into observation mode when I see that whiteboard in my mind. Now you might create another process, which is absolutely okay for clearing your mind. You can do it with meditation. There's lots of ways to do it. But for me, I like it short, quick. So if you do a lot of energy work and you do use a pendulum, getting a solid understanding of your pendulum's yes and no responses is paramount. And the main reason is you need to know for accuracy. The second reason is because entities, mainly the demonic level ones, can manipulate or hijack your pendulum or your rod's accuracy. And if you're not used to the flow and the function of how it works, you're not going to know the difference between when it's you or whether it's being manipulated by something else in the environment. Now, these beings, will try anything to muddle your mind and upset your thinking. So when they play with your pendulum, you're like, oh, is that me? Is that the pendulum? What on earth is going on? Now, I can explain this. I'm going to give you these two examples because I've had it happen to me. Now, you will see changes through unusual shifts in the pendulum's energetic pull because it is energy. When it's moving, it's creating energy. So the pull will be different. The swing or the spin will be different. There might be an abnormal change in the speed or the direction. Or your pendulum or your rods simply just wobble really weirdly, or they do absolutely nothing. I've had all of those things happen and I'm like, what on earth is going on? And then I'm like, aha, we have got some sneaky manipulators here. So anything that isn't the norm with your pendulum usage can be interference attempting to mess with your mind or to disrupt a job that you're doing. So here is a couple of dark entity examples for you. Now, I was doing a remote house clearing one day and I looked away for a moment just to, get a pen, and I felt my already spinning pendulum started to spin super fast in the opposite direction. So my normal clockwise yes, which is like a medium, sort of a slow to medium kind of casual speed, was going flat out. It's wonder the pendulum didn't come off the chain. And my no is a diagonal swing. So I knew it wasn't that. So what else could it be? One of the demonic entities from the property that I was working on, or it could have been one or more, because as you know, they travel around in groups. These beings were having a bit of a play with my pendulum. So I didn't get upset. I just sat there and I observed. And when I looked at it, the anti-clockwise spin stopped. And then I looked away and it started again. So we did this for about 2 or 3 minutes. And all of a sudden it just stopped altogether. There's 4 possible reasons that I came up with why this could be occurring. So number 1, the entity or entities is playing a bit of a game with me, just for a bit of fun. Some of them do have a sense of humour, and maybe he or they thought that I might freak out and that they'd get a bit of a buzz from that. But no. There's no frightened or shocked reactions from me. I simply just stay calm and observe. So number 2, the entity is letting me know that he knows that I'm in the house where he resides and to tread very carefully. Even though I announce my arrival and my intentions very respectfully when doing house clearing, the beings that are present don't always trust humans. They just don't. Even though they can read your energy and they know who I am and what I do, they are cautious, which I think is fair enough. So number 3, he or they are trying to mess with my house clearing accuracy, maybe hoping that I'll miss their favourite food source that's in one of the rooms or on the land, and they can then stay lurking in the background, sort of hidden or cloaked, just feasting away on their favourite vibration. Now number 4, he or they could be summoned entities, and they don't like me interfering with their contracts to be in the home or to, attached to the person for some sorcery or magic reason. Now this is a whole other kettle of fish to unpack and clear. So we're not really going to talk about that today. But there's 4 possible reasons why entities can interfere with your pendulum or your dowsing rods. So another story. Another time I was doing a personal energy clearing for a lady, and the client was absolutely riddled with paranormal beings. And there were reasons why they were there, and we did remove them all. But my pendulum was seriously misbehaving. And when suddenly it stopped. Like I was doing my dowsing, everything seemed normal. The spin was normal, the swing was normal, the speed and the pull was normal. All of a sudden it stopped and it was very still. And I'm like, hello, what's going on here? And you're not going to believe this. Like I was totally shocked when I saw it. The pendulum, which is a hematite crystal, so it's slightly heavier. I like the metal pendulums. The hematite point was trying to lift, like at a right angle. I said, "Stop that." I was so shocked. And it stopped. It just suddenly dropped back to the hanging point. So they could have been letting me know. I know that you are here. We are letting you know. So one last thing. If you do take up dowsing, here are some tips if your pendulum is misbehaving. Now, more often than not, it's not going to be entities playing with your pendulum, because I get that a lot because I'm working with the lower vibrational beings. Most of you, if you're using a pendulum or dowsing rods, you're going to be connecting with spirits in an environment if you're using them for paranormal investigation, or you're just going to be using it at home to connect to your higher self or your intuition for information. So entities aren't going to get involved in those scenarios. But some of these other points that I'm going to mention might be part of why your pendulum is misbehaving. So number one, am I fully grounded and present? So when people are ungrounded, it means that your energy is scattered outside your body. It's really hard for you to focus, hard for you to function. And that can be for lots of different reasons. I might actually do an episode on grounding very soon, and that will help people understand it in a more in-depth way. So you need to ground yourself back into your body. And the easiest way to do that is I actually raise my hands above my head with my hands open, like my palms are facing inwards. As I pull my hands down, I close my fists and I pull myself down into Mother Earth. Now, I'm not outside. I'm sitting at my desk recording this episode. I have my shoes on, all about intention. And then it's done. It's as simple as that. So that's the first point. So point number 2, are you in the right frame of mind to be using your pendulum right now? Because sometimes when we've got a lot of problems in our life or we've got a lot of stuff going on, your thoughts can just take over and they get in the way of that blank whiteboard that I mentioned earlier. So if you want to use your pendulum in that moment, do a little quick meditation where you just ground, you just center your energy and you just ask that all your problems are pushed to the back of your mind. See the whiteboard or see some other method of clearing your mind so you're ready to do your dowsing. And if you find it still doesn't work, maybe it's just not the right time for you to be doing it. So don't give up, because it's not that you can't do it, it's just not to be done in that moment. So number 3, this one's really important. Do I have a clear intention? And is the wording of your questions specific enough? And I find saying the words out loud adds more to the vibration, adds more power to the intention. Because when you're working with a pendulum, remember you can only get yes and no answers, no open-ended questions. It just won't work. So it's a skill that you do learn. The more you practice with your pendulum or your rods, you'll become really good at asking short, sharp, quick questions that say exactly what you want. So number 4, do I need to clear my pendulum's energy? Is there an energy attached to it? Sometimes this happens, but for most people it's going to be number 1, 2 or 3 that we've just mentioned. You can clear your pendulum by holding it in one of your hands, putting your other hand on top, focusing your intention on white light enveloping your pendulum or your rods. You can ask angelic beings to come clean, clear and cleanse all negative energy, all detrimental energy from this pendulum that is in my hands. And this includes paranormal tricksters. Unless your pendulum has emotional imprints on it, because some crystals or some items have emotions attached to them, like an energetic imprint, that have come from people that have made the item, packaged the item and then sold the item. So it might not necessarily be your energy, could have come from pre-purchasing. So I hope you found this episode interesting and it gave you some insight into the world of dowsing and paranormal detection and what to be aware of. Because once you understand what they're up to, they are less likely, they being the dark and the demonic beings, they're less likely to try it because you actually know what they're going to do. If you've ever had some rather interesting issues with your dowsing rods or pendulum, let me know. Send me an email, send me a message. You can actually attach a message to this episode. In the description box, you'll find a little link that says send me a text, and I will answer your question at the beginning of the next episode. So in episode 102, you will hear a listener's observations of a rather interesting energy being who was in a public place and who was behaving in a rather unexpected way. You're going to love Liz's experience. This was in a very public place, and she was the only person that saw this rather interesting entity. I don't want to say too much, but you'll find it really, really fascinating. And her experience adds an almost human layer to these dark entities. So I ask, do they really hate us? Are they evil? Or is there a softer side to some of them? So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.